everyone, welcome back to the KMTRADERS channel. So this is the full market analysis volume 81. Again, we give you a look in our week's analysis and give you pretty much our insights and compare our analysis from last week. So we are going to give Euro, USD and gold a look at tomorrow. Just want to look at a few things there. But yeah, without further ado, we'll start off with Nzd Usd. So what we looked at last week was pretty much a sell-off, and what we were seeing here is potential price move to push up higher and then push lower. So as we can see, price has pretty much done that right now. So what we could be looking out for this week is pretty much either more continuation on lower, and I'm happy to keep thinking about this is just because of the way prices are already moving lower and lower. So I'm happy for price to do what it needs to do, but what we need to see first is pretty much expect a pullback. So we could expect price to push up higher, whether within this range or so. We could even push around the 0.705 and then turn over, and that's pretty much where we're keeping our attention on, really, because what I'm trying to focus on is just having this momentum pulling back. We might as well wait for this to exhaust so then it can turn around. And if we can find that entry within this range, I'm not saying it will definitely get to 0.705, but within this range where it does exhaust, we could expect price to then make its way to the lows, to head into 0.69 or even 0.68, and if it can, it's a good 100 or 100 plus pips there, and again, that's some good enough risk to reward ratios that we can play into this. So yeah, so that's pretty much where I'm looking at for Nzd Usd. So yeah, if we take a look at Aud USD now, so what we're looking out for this is we can see prices pretty much made this turnaround. Now what I was expecting was pretty much price to I believe make some sort of return and retracement. So it's only done that in the later part of the week. We had some divergence forming here, so it was kind of clear that we were going to get some sort of retracement or some sort of turnover, but eventually it took a bit more of a deeper deeper push lower before price started to kind of pull back. So now that we can see that, and what I had drawn from last week was the possibility of taking a counter trade, which is why I labeled this here. But we could still take a counter trade here, and again, it all depends how far price wants to push up higher. So we could potentially get price to take an entry at some point here and watch it rise all the way up to possibly the 0.75, have some sort of reaction, and then this would be where the bigger profit would come from, which I believe is the selling option. And tying this in with Nzd Usd is pretty much this overall sell-off bias that we've got going on here. So tying this in together, we can see that momentum is pushing lower. We can see that there is a slight pullback. So what we're going to have to do is just see if the momentum can still push up higher. If it can, then we should expect price to push up just a bit more within this range, and if it can, we could expect price to push up where it can. Obviously you can push to, and then for example, if it does exhaust quite early on, then we can take those sells. So it really does depend how much price does push up higher for the pip count. So we may not get that much of a reward there, but I believe that we could get more of a pip count towards the downside. So the higher that this does push up, obviously if you do get in, then the more reward we can get in there. But if you do miss it, don't worry, because I feel like there is an opportunity to take a sell-off opportunity, and if we can, then we can take it into the lows, even to 0.73 or even 0.725, and see how price reacts from this point onwards. So pretty much I'm just trying to see if we can get this sell-off opportunity, or pretty much this sell-off opportunity overall in the long run, and that's pretty much where my bias is for that one. So let's take a look at now at Usd Jpy. So for this one, I'm still what we looked at last week was pretty much two scenarios, right? So what we were looking at is if price could make some sort of retracement within this range and then push up higher. but that obviously didn't happen. So what we are seeing right now is pretty much price pushing lower, which is pretty much this one. So if I go ahead and get rid of this and this right now, my conclusions for this one, because it has been quite tricky, it's kind of a mixture of what's both been happening through our last analysis, and essentially what I'm trying to configure or trying to even look at is possibility of a turnover still. I think that there is a possibility of price doing one or two things, and this is again the bias coming into play, but I might as well discuss two scenarios here just in case that price does one thing opposing the other. So we have the downside opportunity, which I want to discuss. Now the reason for this is just following on from this momentum push. I feel like this is overall still having a bearish effect on the market, but again it just depends what market wants to do. So if we do get some sort of bearish pressure, then we could expect price to push into this zone here around 111 and then have that turnover. Okay, so if we do get that turnover in the market, we can take advantage of all of this pip to the downside, going for 109. It's a good under 200 pips. So that's pretty much my kind of viewpoint of it. But the opposing scenario is that if we start to get much more bullish action into the market, we could start to see price rally on and do something like this, and that's where we can get a retest in. And you'll see with the other JPY pairs that there is a bullishness of action taking place right now, and this is why I'm going to put in this scenario just in case we do get this possibility of working. And if we do, then we do stand the ability for price to keep pushing up higher and higher. And yeah, so hopefully we can pretty much come to a conclusion within this. And I think it will be quite obvious if we do take a sell, because if we do get price to push up and then have a strong sell-off, all we have to do is just wait for pretty much a pullback and just take a trade from that, really. And vice versa with the upside opportunity. If we get a strong bullish candle, we just wait for a pullback and pretty much do the same thing there and take a retest entry. So yeah, that's pretty much where I stand for UJ. So yeah, if we take a look at CAD right now, so this is where this bullishness action or nature is coming into play right now. So we can see we've had this strong turnover throughout the week. I think I was actually anticipating this, I'm not entirely too sure, but I think that one scenario that I've drawn out was that price was to break the low and then have that turnover. So obviously it made a very deep low, taking out 85.5 zone, but we ended up starting to rally up higher, so that's nice to see. I might as well get rid of this and we start to look at some newer opportunities for this pair. So what we could expect through this week, is what I'm personally looking out for, is basically, we want to continue this bullish momentum, right? So what I personally want to see is all those buying opportunities. So for me, the perfect opportunity is just waiting for that pullback and then waiting for those continuations. So I'm not entirely sure if price will go all the way up to 91. Again, it's just a guess, but all we have to do is just keep in mind of price action, right? Because if we start to see a lot of bearish pressure coming into play, after we start to get our buy, it's a critical point where we have to think about, either closing our position, moving our trade to break even, or cutting our losses potentially even short, or even, not even thinking about taking a buy. It really just depends on what opportunities lie ahead of us. But ultimately, my bias for this pair is pretty much an upside. I want to try and take a buy on this and pretty much just wait for a pullback or a nice exhaustion before we can get that push up higher. So yeah, so I guess that's pretty much my kind of outlook with that. I can't really see any opposing sell-off opportunities yet. We may have some opportunities towards the downside. It really just depends if this does really exhaust. So it could look like something like that and then push lower, but I'm not entirely too sure with that scenario, so I'm just gonna stick with a possible buy scenario for now. So yeah, so we'll move on to now Euro JPY. So if we take a look at this pair, what we had scenario 1 was pretty much an upside opportunity. I think that we are now pushing up higher. I'm not really too sure about taking a sell right now because I'm liking what we're seeing about this bullish pressure right now. So for now, I'm just going to disregard any sell-off opportunities for now. and I'm just going to particularly just focus on buying opportunities for this pair. So right now we can see price pushing up ever so nicely. It'd be interesting to see how much this can push up further, but ultimately again we're just going to wait for the pullback and then try and get in on an entry towards the upside, potentially going up to 132. Not saying it will go all the way straight away, but take your profits accordingly, and don't get too greedy with the market. Just just be mindful that there can be bearish pressure to equally take advantage of us, because we do have this strong momentum here. So this could ultimately be just a higher time frame pullback, so that's why I'm just being very cautious with that play. So the second scenario that we've got drawn here, sorry, not the second scenario, the second outlook that we have for the JPY pairs is the Nzd Jpy pushing lower, and you'll also see this in a similar reflection with the Aud Jpy as well. So again, what we looked at last week was price just pretty much just pushing up higher. Again, we're just waiting for this exhaustion really. So price could potentially push up higher and then turn over. Or, like I said, I think we actually spoke about this last week, and why we drew two scenarios here. I believe we would either get price to push up just a bit higher and then push lower, or we'll start to see that turnover within the week within this range at 77.5 and push lower. So ultimately, we do have some good pips to catch here, good 200 pips or so, and again, it just really just depends if we can get that momentum flowing towards the downside, and if we can, we just simply wait for that perfect opportunity to get in. And similarly with Aud Jpy, again, I'm looking at this through the lens of a potential opportunity towards, selling off still. I think what we've got here drawn is, pretty much this upside opportunity, but I think that the upside opportunity, looking at how price has, been developing, I don't know if it does have that, I don't know if it will have that ability to miraculously push higher and higher. But I can see why I did think about doing, why I could see price push up higher and then push low sort of thing. So I am two states of mind with this, actually looking at this right now. But I think that what another possible scenario is that if we do get price to push up higher from this buying opportunity, we could potentially hedge ourselves and take advantage of using the confluence with Nzd Jpy, and we could potentially hedge ourselves. So in the sense where hedge ourselves in the sense where we can look for a buy opportunity, but then also, whilst we're thinking about this buy opportunity, think about taking a sell opportunity if that if the correct opportunity presents itself in that correct way. So if we can get into this mindset, or if we can get into this opportunist look insight, then we could potentially take a sell, and hopefully we could then let the trades run out. If price wants to push up higher, we can. If price wants to sell, then let it do so. And again, 200 pip to the downside and potential 100 pip towards the upside. So really, that one, I can see that one being a nice free-for-all really. So yeah, so moving on to the last two pairs for the video. So looking at USD Chef. So I think what we looked at last week was a potential price to push low, but then push on higher. I'm not entirely too sure with this for now, based on through this week. So what I think is a possibility of happening is price to potentially push back into 91 and then push up higher. So that's where I possibly could be looking at in the market. We could possibly see price turn over towards the downside, and we could even look at selling opportunities to take towards the downside, and then again looking at a buying opportunity to ride towards that 93 level. So again, this is pretty much an outlook change, but it's because we've not really seen that strong bullish momentum that I really do want to see. So possibly I'm convinced that we could take a short, for a good 80 or just under 100 pips, and then if it carries on going lower and lower, possibly look at some buying opportunity. Again, it really just depends how strong this push towards the downside is, and if we can get some weaknesses coming into play here. So yeah, that's where I stand with that. And with USD Cad, what we can see here is pretty much a similar story. I kind of like what we've got drawn out here. We're pretty much looking at, you know, a possible push lower, and then price to possibly make some sort of recovery, and then more continuations lower. So I'm quite happy with that USD Cad. I'll probably just extend it a bit wider, but ultimately you can see the picture here, what I'm trying to paint for you guys, or the roadmap, I guess, and that's ultimately where price is going to push lower, make some sort of, you know, exhaustion to the downside, potentially recover, have some failure to push up higher, and then push low. So pretty much that kind of alternation between the buys and the sells. So again, it will be the battle there, but ultimately I think that we do need some sort of recovery, well, price to drop off into these ranges here. You know, we've got all this area of price pushing up higher and higher, and as you know, price needs to have that healthy price action. For a trend, it needs to have, you know, its pullbacks along the way. So definitely we'll keep an eye out for these pairs over the next few days or so. But yeah, this did give you a good insight for what's to come for next week. Again, if you made it all the way to the end of the video, I do appreciate your time for watching. We do have a trading group that you can join. That link is in the description. And yeah, of course, if you've made it all the way to the end, I do appreciate your time for watching. So thank you very much for listening, guys, and we'll see you all in our next video.